We're recording.
We are
Yay!
on the report.
Yep.
So when everyone watches this, Valentine's Day will have been just a day or two ago. So I'm here, but we're not
Are
there
you
yet.
ready? Are you ready for Valentine's Day?
There's your answer.
No, no, yeah, no, I'm not. For all that is listening out there, I don't have a special Valentine
No Valentine.
other than my dog. So I
Right?
might, yeah, and he won't be getting chocolates. So
No, no.
no.
We're in Harrodsburg. We're staying in Harrodsburg, but they're judging a dive meet in Danville for SAA conference. And so we'll be at the Beaumont Inn. I'm looking like my beautiful self because I'm going archiving today. So I'm going back to play in some records, try and find some information about Tim's family from I'm back to 1820. I think I know who the next line is, but I'm hoping I can find some details here.
Nice. Very good. I
Yeah.
like the investigative skill set that you have there, Jennifer.
Yep, for sure. What we are going to talk briefly about, and this will probably be a brief one today, is homes are sitting on the market a little bit more. What do sellers need to do besides price it right and do prepares? Sometimes it's still the buyers are having a difficult time purchasing, right, Lance, because of their expectations of what they want in a house at that price, whereas the sellers think my house is worth this. But when it comes time to do a price drop, and we're just going to use my listing as an example, not that I think we're doing anything, but it's listed at 450. So if you were going to do a price drop of five to 10,000, it probably right now what we're seeing is like 10,000 increments a lot at that price point. So Lance, I wanted to have Mark weigh in on something that you and I have talked about in the past. Whereas, what's the taking average scenarios? What would the mortgage payment be on a $450,000 home if you price dropped it to 440? Versus if you kept it at 450, but you use that 10,000 to buy down in a 3-2-1 scenario. And also, if you could explain what's the difference between a 3-2-1 and what we used to call, which was an adjustable rate ARM. I said in layman's terms to somebody the other day, they said they didn't understand it. And I said, well, if your interest rate is, let's just say for terms say 7, and you buy it down to 5.5, that it's in 3 years going to hit back to 7, but it's 7. And on the old ARMs, you might have had 7 today and you knew it was going to adjust up or sometimes down, but usually up. And you didn't know what the stop gap was. So will you tell us a little more about that? Correct anything that I said wrong in my layman's terms, and then just show us the numbers for the other, and then
I'm
Mark
ready
weigh
for
in
you.
on what you would advise someone to do.
I'm ready for you. First
Yep.
thing we got to do is we got to set the table. So
Yep.
Jennifer talked about what's going on with houses. How long is it taking to sell? Total inventory today, as we speak, 1.65 million houses for sale in the United States.
Wow.
Newly listed, just under 500,000 at 443,000, which is an 8.6% decline year over year. Average time on market, Jennifer, median days, up 7 days from this time last year. We're sitting at 66 days, which is the median. And our national average supply of homes, 4 months. So homes are taking a little bit longer to sell. We're seeing prices drop, or we're seeing realtors have conversations with their clients, listing agents like Jennifer having conversations with their clients about, do we lower the price or do we add some chum to the water, as they would say, to kind of stir things up a little bit and bring somebody in and look a little bit different. So Jennifer just said, hey, what if we lower it $10,000? So if we use 6% as the interest rate, that's kind of an average interest rate today, lowering the price $10,000 would change the schema of everyone by $56. That's the difference that $56 is going to represent in their payment plan.
If we dropped it 10,000, it would save them $56 a month.
Correct. So you're saying if you drop your house $10,000, is $50 going to move the needle? And that's a common reaction that a borrower, excuse me, that a client is like, well, let's just lower it. Let's lower it 500. Let's lower it. It's funny, Jennifer. I have different alerts like most of us do. You know, that are on the call here. We get alerts of things, and I see the silliest things. I'm like, price lowered $100, price lowered 500, and it's like, who are these people that are representing? Because that's not a needle mover. And then you can look back and see for a couple of weeks, price lowered $500. Um, so what Jennifer was asking about is called a buy down. So in the old days, back in the old days when we started this business decades ago, we had an offering called an ARM, which is an adjustable rate mortgage. And the idea behind an ARM was that the borrower could buy a house at a rate that was more comfortable to them. So if the market was 7%, they might be able to get into an ARM at a 5.5, and that would be fixed for 5, 7, or 10 years. And over those decades, that became refined to a 1-year ARM, a 6-month ARM, a lot of different variables. But what Jennifer was saying is, when it adjusted, when you're at the table signing paperwork, it had a floor, which is the lowest that it could ever go down to. And by the way, in 2008, 9, and 10, there there were no floors. There was no language in there about a floor. And so what happened was, from a personal experience, I had one of these mortgages where
Same.
it was prime -1 when it started. So prime was at 5%. And then suddenly over the next couple of years, prime dropped to what? 0.25%. And you had a
Mhm.
negative amortizing loan. It really did happen, guys. And if you,
Wow.
some of you might even key in and say, wait a second, doesn't Japan offer that? Some countries do offer that. They do it to get things moving in their economy. But we've gotten away from that. There now is a floor on all
Yeah.
mortgage, on all ARMs. I did an ARM recently. HELOC is another version of an ARM. Home equity line is adjustable rate mortgage, much shorter term, shorter call date, meaning when it has to be paid off. And the floor, I think, was 6%, and the ceiling, which is as high as it can go, was 22%. So
Oh,
that means that it can go up to 22%. And there's rules that talk about how high it go. It can only go up 5% on the first adjustment, and then 2% every adjustment thereafter. So Jennifer, if you see an ARM come across your a closing that I wouldn't be at, or talking to some other realtors, there are some 6-month adjusting ARMs now that have like a 5/6. It's a 5-year fix, and instead of being 5/1 where it adjusts every year, now wait a minute, Dennis, it's 5/6. It adjusts every 6th year. No, that's every 6 months now, and so that could ride up pretty quick on someone. I hope we don't see that, or, rates going up. But there are ceilings now, and there are floors. So what Jennifer was talking about, there's a product out there called a buy down. And a buy down is where you heard it mentioned as a 2-1. There's a 2-0. There's a 3-2-1. What does that mean? I'll be glad to do a call about that in the future. But what it means is, when the buyer buys their home, let's say the par rate today is 6%,
mhm.
and Jennifer's seller was thinking about lowering the price $10,000. So that means they're going to have $10,000 less in their pocket when they sell the house. As we just talked about, it's only going to affect things basically $50 for the buyer. I don't
Right.
think that's enough to move the needle. But what Jennifer suggested is a buy down. She could take that $10,000, the seller could, and say, you know what? I'm going to take this $10,000 and I'll let a potential buyer use that to have a 6% interest rate, but buy it down so that the first year it's a 4% interest rate. What? And then the second year it's a 5% interest rate. That sounds interesting. And then at the third year, it becomes the 6% that we started at. They're into the remaining 27 years. And there's a lot of variables. The 2-0 I just said, it might be that it goes down 1% for 2 years. So instead of 6, the first 2 years it would be 5%, 5%, and then the remaining 28 years at 6. How is this happening? Is it a lower interest rate? No, it's not. It's still a 6% interest rate, but the buyer is simply saying to the seller is saying to a potential buyer, here's $10,000 that you can use to prepay your interest and make you feel a little bit better about how things are happening. So when you do that, I'm pulling out my mortgage calculator. Jennifer, what was ours? 400,000, I think,
450.
was our.
450.
Excuse me. 450.
450. Mm-hmm.
So guys, 450,000 if that was our loan amount, at 6% interest for a 30-year term, the payment would have been $26.97. I'm writing that down so I can repeat it back to you.
2697.
Twenty-six ninety seven.
Let's just call it 2700.
Okay, we'll call it $2,700. So the Jennifer said, "Hey, instead of lowering your price by $10,000, which is only going to affect things $50 to the buyer, why don't we give them $10,000 to do a 2-1 buy down?" So now they've got that same loan amount, $450,000, amortized over 30 years, but instead of being a 6%, it's a 4% to start, and now their payment is $2,150. 2,700 minus 2,150 is a $550 difference. That's a needle mover.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's something. Isn't that crazy? That let's lower it 10,000, or you put that $10,000 to work, and it also
And where it's going. And Mark, let's just say that somebody, you want them to be debt free and they have a $500 car payment, which is not unusual, but it's going to be paid off in 2 years. This would be a great product for them because it's not adding that extra. When the car is paid off, they're used to doing that, and hope is that the interest rates will be different. But from a financial planner point of view, budget coach point of view, what is your thought about that kind of a utilization of $10,000 of seller money? Buy the price down or buy the rate down?
I love it. I love it because you're getting margin back in your budget and you're strategically looking at what are the pros and cons of whether I buy something down over, or I use it to pay for points to lower the interest rate over time. And I love that kind of analogy. Anyone listening, this is exactly what Lance just laid out. This is exactly the kinds of people and strategies that you have on this screen. Is how is this going to? What are the options available for $10,000? Okay, we can get $50 back. Okay, great. Well, we can here. Let me sum it up like this. Do you want 50 or do you want 500?
Exactly. I mean, you're basically 10 timesing the benefit to yourself with the same amount of money from the seller. Now, Lance, there is another thing, and that is a permanent rate buy down. And I want you to tell a little bit about what that would look like and the difference where that 10,000 goes if you have to sell early, like sell before the 2 year.
Okay, let me talk before I talk. Yeah, I'll talk about the permanent buy down. So the permanent buy down is where Jennifer's client could take that $10,000 and say, you can use this $10,000 towards any and all closing costs, prepaids, anything. And then they would talk to me as a broker, and I would look at, okay, what does it take? So if par rate was 6% today, the honest truth is it's not going to buy them very much, Jennifer. Mm-hmm. They might be able to get, instead of a 6, they might be able to get a 5.75, maybe. The permanent buy down over the life of that loan is a lot of money to make that happen for the investor and for the borrower. On the contrary, on the product that I was telling you about a second ago, which is the temporary buy down, where it starts at 4, the next year it's 5, then it's 6 from then on out. The whole loan was written on the premise of 6%. The person has to be able to qualify for 6%. They're just getting a break on how the money rolls in, because that $10,000 is actually put into an escrow account. The escrow account for the next 24 months, on the example I given, a little bit of it each month is applied towards the principal to help the buyer with their payments. So Jennifer said, what happens if you sell or if you refi? So let's say that they did a loan like this last month, and with the new Fed chairman coming in, suddenly rates dropped to 5%. Remember, their baseline was 6. I would probably be calling them and saying, hey, let's take a look at this, because we could reset that and possibly lock them at a 5%, maybe a little bit lower. And then what happens to that money that was in escrow? It's refunded to them. It's in escrow. It's not the banks. We don't get to keep that. It's escrow that's set aside. So if they were to sell their property, that's what Jennifer originally asked me to comment on, they're going to get that money back. Let's use a bigger example. Let's say that this was a $1 million. I did one of these last year, $1.5 million property. I had $50,000 in seller paid, prepaids, etc., and I did a 2-1 buy down for the family. So after the end of the first year, there was still about $31,000 left in it, and they refinanced and they got the $31,000 back as a lender credit. So let's say that was 1.5 was what they originally bought the house for. They borrowed 1.2. At the end of the year, they refinanced. That 1.2 minus the 30,000 was their payoff, and they were like, "This is amazing." And a lot of
And
people say, "Why haven't we heard about this product? Is this brand new?" It's not. It's been around for 20 years. People just haven't used it very much.
And it's
We see this
very,
a lot.
very hard for people to understand, which is why I wanted to talk about this. Because if you hear it explained the way you have, and you take 15 minutes so far to break that down, it makes a ton of sense. And especially when the permanent buy down, which is what a lot of people think they want to do, that money's gone. It's paid off to the bank at the beginning. And so this is where it's really important to work with a team that has options, but also knows the options and knows how to explain them to people. And I'll be sharing a lot of this video because until rates come down where people can stomach them, especially with their higher, everything that, even though they may be approved on their DTI, they may not feel comfortable with that payment. Well, if your payment's $550 less for the first year, then you can keep on your debt knockout.
Yeah, well, and that's the important part of this. In a perfect world, we're all debt free and we can buy houses for cash but that's we have no debt. Well, the fact of the matter is we have to work within what our life currently is based on the decisions that we've made in the past, and we have to figure out how we're going to move forward. And I'm saying that because if you're fighting through debt, but the need for you to get into a home is now because of life, then and for whatever reason is driving people towards that, then having people lay out what the options are and give you the choice of making decisions based on facts of what Lance just laid out in the last 15 minutes. 15 minutes. And how many people listening to this right now would that 15 minutes change? And especially those that are getting ready to make that final push towards home ownership.
Yep.
If you can recapture back,
if
you can recapture back $500 in this instance, or $31,000 in that case, we're not talking $5,000 or $500 a month is $7,200 a year.
Yeah.
So what could you do with $7,200 a year?
Well,
did I do my math right? I think I did my math right.
500 to 6,000. So you're talking 12,000 over the course of 2 years. But also, it's not difficult at a 450 price point home to have sellers give 10,000 in closing costs, prepaid points, not allowables, and all those things. It's not like we're trying to say, oh, you need to get 6%,
right,
in seller concessions. 10,000 is fairly normal in that price point. Most sellers have those kind of margins. Most sellers have 3% in today's world, in addition to being able to help with buyer's agency compensation, whatever that amount may be. They have those. They're kind of prepared to do those. And one of the things that sometimes we do is if we've lowered the price to 440 and someone comes in and says, oh, but I need 10,000, and we know it's going to appraise at that, we'll be like, okay, we can give you 10,000 or we can give you 440. We can't give you both. Which do you want?
Right.
And here's why this might be advantageous to you.
Right. Absolutely. And you need someone in your corner laying out all those options that, like I said, that Lance just presented.
Yep.
And I need
so, Mark, go ahead, Lance. What?
There's going to be some ticky-tacky people watching this, so clear something up. We're speaking in generalities.
Absolutely.
And
yeah,
Mark just caught it, and then Jennifer did the quick math. So our $10,000 wouldn't buy us 2 years. Okay, it would take $12,000 to do it, but we're doing a generality.
Right.
And that can be split up as well. How the 10,000 or the 12,000 is realized. Just wanted to say that because someone
Here,
watched
let
this
me do
and
this
goes,
really quick.
"I'm
Hold
not
on.
laughing." It's funny. I was like,
Disclaimer,
"Where is it?"
disclaimer, disclaimer.
Thank you.
Oh God, okay. Hold
Yeah.
on. Cancel.
Uh,
How do I
uh,
remove it now?
I just click on it
you
again.
can't
Okay.
put there. You can't put something up and then not know how to remove it.
I know. Well, oh God, are you clicking on it too? Okay. We're all
Yeah.
clicking. Anyway, so Mark,
Little
let me
humor.
ask you, with the average person that you are helping remove debt, what do most people come into you with? Like somewhere around 10,000, 20? Like what's the average debt they come in with?
It's much more than that, Jennifer.
Okay.
It's much more than
What's
that.
the
The amount
average?
of on average, most of my clients are dealing with anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 worth of debt,
So
and
for
it
them
can
to
go.
have 12,000 and a jump start, it's like, I mean, it's kind of like the tax return, right? Which
Well,
I always have viewed large tax returns as you gave the government a no interest loan for a year. So
yeah.
yes, get a little bit back, but you don't want a big amount. But if you could tell them, I'm going to give you an extra 550 every month to put towards your debt
Let,
snowball, how much could you leverage that?
let me explain how incredibly important $500 is in for a lot of families that are attacking debt. $500, $7,200 a year. When you're in a debt journey, that might be multiple years. $7,200 of recaptured margin to pay off debt makes a massive impact. I cannot tell people enough the difference of $100 to $200 makes in a month in margin. And in this case, if something could be lowered to increase someone's margin to pay off debt by $500 in this instance, generally speaking, then we that's a significant amount of money. That
Would
is,
you think it would have their bill, like have the time that they were paying debt off? Like if it was a 5 year, maybe now it's two and a
oh, for
half.
sure. I mean,
And you're still paying your
my
extra 100 or 200 that you were squeaking out on your own.
yeah. I mean,
You're smart.
yeah. I mean, $500 extra a month might pay off an entire card that would take may take 2 months, and so when you're looking at 2 months, $1,000, there's a significant amount of folks that have debts that are less than $1,000, maybe $1,500 more, but they don't have the margin in their paychecks to be able to even attack a less than $1,000 debt because they're living paycheck to paycheck. And
Right.
when you come in and this is where my clients benefit from my service is the strategies that we look at that based on the options that you have available. I'm working right now with two single moms, and one single mom, for example, had gone through and anyone listening, here's the strategy. If you're looking to increase margin and to get a head start on your debt, I'll share this with you. Declutter your house, and at the same time take the time to list the items that are on list them on Facebook Marketplace. I have a client right now that took that advice. She went through one room at a time, all kids, clothes, kids, games, kids, anything that had to deal with kids that were no longer using those items. 6 months to a year, those items went on Facebook Marketplace. $3,500 later in about
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
People,
And you guys know that
this,
organizing, that's the first thing I tell people to do is declutter. So whether you're organizing your house or you're organizing your finances, declutter. Now, Mark, if we're talking interest rates on most credit cards, history major math, say 20%, $550 extra a month that you're paying off to the principal debt owed. What additional savings is that compounding when you're not paying 20% interest on that?
I mean, the compound
100, 125.
125, I think is what I think that number
So
is.
you're increasing it that way too.
Right, exactly.
Smarter, not harder.
Right. The compounded growth on by paying off debt and increasing margin and freeing up money to pay off other debt, so that you're not sitting there paying credit cards that have the up to 30% on in some cases of credit cards, and 22%, 25%. Think about the just take, for anyone listening, you want me to answer that question specifically? Go back and look at your statements, your credit card statements, for the balances that you've carried from 1 month to the next over the last year, and total up all of the amount of interest that you've paid, and ask yourself, is what you put on that card worth the amount of interest that you've carried and paid over this last year?
Yeah,
If
that
the
was the
answer is
question
if
last
the
year.
answer if the
Or last
answer
week.
is no, if the answer is no, what I put on this credit card is not worth the amount of interest that I paid over this last year, cut up the card.
Yeah.
Stop using the card. The rebates and the miles and the awards. Look at 1% back on $1,000. So you're telling me, or 0.01% back on cash back on a $1,000 card, I think is what, $10?
Sounds like.
So if your logic, you're trading $1,000 for 10. What part of this do we not get? So, and I know that's harsh. That's harsh. But if you think that miles and awards and all of that, none of that comes from the credit card company that you're carrying that balance. That's all paid through late fees and by other people who are carrying balances. I guarantee you, no credit card company is sitting out there going, "Oh, let's just go buy a bunch of miles for a bunch of people." That's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably should throw a disclaimer in there that I don't know exactly that for sure, but I would assume that they're probably not doing that for free. So long story short, what I want to share with you is, if you go back to that credit card that you've been carrying that balance for the last year, and you total up the interest, and you look at that and you ask yourself, or shocked about how much you've been paying in interest, the next question you need to ask yourself is, why are you using that card?
Yep. And then what I want to ask everybody to think about is, if Lance has gotten you pre-approved for X amount and you don't like what the payment is, can you and I, negotiate a better offer on that house so that we can do a 3-2-1 type buy down? I am going to run into the archives in Frankfort, Kentucky, and dig up some old names and stuff. If you guys want to continue to talk, let me know, and I'll leave my thing up and going. Otherwise, we'll cut it off.
Minutes.
I think this is great at 30 minutes.
I want to show you something before we go. Okay.
Yeah.
I took what we were talking about, and here we go. Where did it go? All right. So
I'm going to make it big.
I'm going to make this full screen. There we go. All right. So right here we have our $450,000 for a 30-year. This was a 2-1 buy down. And there was the original 6-year. Year 1 at 4%. It saved $550 a month. Year 2, it went to 5%. So saved them $282 a month. And year 3, it's back to their regular payment. Jennifer, look at the cost. Right there, it is on paper. And you know what's super important, Jennifer?
Mm-hmm.
Read the bottom line right there. No, you probably can't, because it says
this is the total estimate.
Can be paid for by the buyer.
Wait, one person talk.
By the buyer, the seller, the lender, or a third party.
Okay, yeah. Buyer, seller, or lender can do this on a purchase. It's not a refi thing. Is that correct?
On refis, it gets a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. Okay. So refis, one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, so that's a great example. Thanks for sharing that, Lance. I think both of you guys were talking a little bit over each other on that last sentence. So if you might zoom in, if you were listening to this, go back and pause and read that.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what I was saying is this 9,000 can be paid for by the seller, the buyer, the lender, or another third party. So call me and we'll discuss that.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I think that
fantastic.
one of the next weeks, we also want to talk about the other thing that we have people come up besides sticker shock on their mortgage payment, which this addresses, is what do you do when you have a house that you want to sell or that you have to sell to buy, and some options that you have for that. So I think next week we might talk a little bit about that.
Sounds
Super
good.
excited to go over that. In fact,
Yeah.
Jennifer, we could even have one of my reps would be glad to help us with that. So
Oh,
it
so
might be a good
special
fit.
guest next week. Perfect.
Yeah.
And we do have a
Yep.
guest for the home warranties lined up for the week after that. And then Mark will line up your testimonial and hear how in depth you do and what they've experienced going through it and experience now. So,
Yeah,
all right, I'm
sounds
running away.
sounds good.
Guys, awesome.